Hello everybody, this is Dr. Arun Deer, and in this video I'm going to be answering this one question that we get asked all the time, that has my gastric sleeve stretched? Yes, it is a very commonly asked question, especially from people who have had gastric sleeve surgery and they are constantly thinking about whether they're going to regain the weight, how soon they're going to regain the weight, or whether the sleeve has stretched. So clearly, I often say this in a joking way, that your sleeve is not made of stainless steel. There is a process, what is called as adaptation, that happens after gastric sleeve surgery. But before we go down that path, I want to just explain this, just to lay the background as to what happens when we perform a gastric sleeve surgery, and this will apply to gastric bypass patients as well. There are two elements of weight loss surgery that are very effective, which allow the individual to change their eating patterns and behaviors, and when it comes to the body, it changes the metabolism. So one is the mechanical part, which is the restriction which you get from the weight loss surgery or the small pouch that is developed from the gastric bypass. The other thing is that of the hormonal changes that come about, which is the change of the ghrelin and the leptin and all those other hormones that create a shift in the individual's metabolism. Now, after surgery, there is a phase of adaptation, as individuals are informed about after surgery, that first month is going to be different to the sensation of fullness that you get because you are on altered textured fluids and then foods. As you're introducing purine and soft diet and all of that, slowly the texture of the food is changing, so you start to notice that you get fuller quicker. But as you progress from 3 months to 6 months to 12 months, you notice that you can eat a little bit more. So it goes from a quarter plate to half a plate, you can have more. And that's perfectly normal. That's your body going through, or your sleeve going through an adaptation process. So, when people say, I'm able to eat more, that's normal. It doesn't mean that your sleeve has stretched. But let's talk about what are the things to know whether your sleeve has stretched or not. Realistically, just by telling that the amount of food that you can eat is an indicator of sleeve stretching is not a good test. You really need two key tests, and this is for your doctor to arrange in order to tell whether your sleeve has stretched or not. One is, we call this a fizz CT. Fizz meaning that you're given this drink which is bubbly and which creates a gaseous distension, stretch in your stomach to actually inflate it like a balloon to see how much it can stretch, and it's a CT scan. So you go through this donut and essentially you get to see whether the sleeve has actually stretched or not. So that's one test, and the other test is that of a gastroscopy. Once again, your surgeon would be able to organize that in order to assess whether the sleeve has actually stretched. But let's have a look at the technical side of things, and then what are the behavioral reasons that could cause a sleeve to stretch. And why this is important to understand is this will have implications on what you need to do from there on. So when it comes to the technical side of things, I've just got a little foam model of a stomach, and in sleeve what we do is we remove about 60 to 70% of the stomach. This part of the stomach is called the fundus of the stomach. Now, technical reason why the sleeve may stretch is it's mostly in the upper half of the stomach that the sleeve begins to stretch, and the reason for that is if the surgeon has gone too tight in the lower part of the stomach. So if it is too tight, and a lot of people ask me, can you make our sleeve tighter? Well, that's not a good strategy because the body is going to somehow try and adapt it. So what happens is the part of the stomach which is tight over here, anything that is above it starts to stretch because it becomes a vessel to receive all the food that the individual is consuming. So that is a technical reason why the sleeve begins to stretch naturally, because there is a point of narrowing lower down. So hopefully this is making sense. But the more important part that I see is that of behavioral. Now, when I say behavioral, there are really these 7 aspects that I've discussed in further detail in another video, but those 7 aspects, which I'll go through very quickly here, is number 1 is medications. If individuals have introduced some new medications, especially antidepressants, Nexium or Somac, which are called proton pump inhibitors, they can lead to long-term weight gain. That's number 1. Number 2, if the individual has returned to their old behaviors of, going for soothing foods or foods that make them comfortable, like chocolates and ice creams and chips and those sort of things. We call them slider foods. And generally they are, they go to these foods when there are any emotional triggers. Going for sugars or foods that contain hidden sugars, chips for that matter contain hidden sugars, sodas and soda pops and Coke, even Coke Zero, even though they claim that it's got 0 calories, it's got several chemicals in it, which we know from several studies, which are going to slow down your metabolism. Next one is basically the habit of going on to dieting patterns. See, when you start to diet, you're basically triggering the stress response. And stress response is nothing else but it makes your body to go into a survival mode. And that basically makes the body feel that there is a famine out there, there is a threat out there, and the body goes into a mode to conserve things. Then not having adequate sleep. If you are not getting a sound 6 to 7 hours of good quality sleep, well, the body is going to be triggered into a stress response again, and you're going to be relying on sugars and caffeine for the kick. And the most important thing is to keep your body, which is the next point, is that of hydration. If you're not keeping yourself well hydrated, your metabolism cannot function well. And the most important thing is to focus on managing your stress better. Mental health is something that allows you to allow these 2 strategies that I'm going to suggest to you as a prevention to prevent your sleep from getting stretched. So let's go straight into it. The 2 strategies are, friends, number 1 is that of mindful eating. Now I know you've heard about mindful eating, but I'll explain to you very briefly what are the 2 strategies that I tell my patients to start incorporating, which equate to mindful eating. Number 1 is you've got to know what you're putting in your mouth and what sensation it gives you. If you are having a salad, it really makes you feel good, but also because it is high fiber food, when you're full, you really need to know when to say no, thank you, and push your plate away. That means I'm not going to be putting more into my mouth because I feel full. So you are paying attention to your body's sensation. So that's number 1. Recognizing the fullness is the first strategy of mindful eating. The second strategy of mindful eating is not eating in front of screens, like not watching your phone or a monitor or watching movies and putting food in your mouth. So these are 2 very key aspects. Even if you're just doing these 2, you are engaging in mindful eating. I always say, sit in the company of your loved one, family member, or whoever, and then enjoy and express gratitude for the food that you've got. The second strategy to prevent, because as I said, prevention is better than cure, to prevent your sleep from getting stretched is to maintain regular follow-up with your support team. In our practice, we provide a holistic, integrated approach to weight loss through our transformed program. And what it means is that we encourage people to develop a regular form of contact with their surgeon, dietitian, psychologist, exercise physiologist, the practice nurse, whoever, and your GP, very importantly, because those are the people who will pick up certain behaviors which are not going to serve you in the long run. Please understand this, that the technical reasons for why the sleeve stretches are very few. So that's where revisional surgery is generally not a good way to go down. So what I would highly encourage you is have this information kind of handy for you every time you have this question or the doubt that pops up in your mind that has my sleeve stretched. Revise what is there in this video, and I can tell you, you will certainly feel more reassured and understand that you have this support network around you that you can tap into. So I hope you found some value out of this video. Do like it and share it, and do subscribe to my YouTube channel to stay connected for other videos. Take care and stay safe.